Hello, everyone. First, I want to thank David Peddis and all the other members of the scientific committee for organizing this interesting symposium on philosophy and chemistry in dialogue, for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to present a talk entitled The Expected Third Revolutionary Culture Event in Humanity's Journey to Uncover the Secrets of Nature. In my presentation, I will introduce what I consider the principal forces driving scientific research, and I will show that these driving forces have been guiding humanity along a fascinating journey to discovering the secrets of nature. And this journey has been punctuated by two revolutionary intellectual events that are methodological paradigm shifts. They are the birth of philosophy in the 6th century BC and the mature formulation and the systematic application of the experimental method since the 17th century AD. In my view, we are experiencing a third revolutionary intellectual event right in these decades. And this third revolutionary intellectual event has been sparked by the investigation and management of complex systems. And I will demonstrate that this third revolutionary intellectual event is transforming all disciplines, including chemistry, as I'm going to substantiate at the end of my talk. The contents I present in this talk have been published in two recent articles and into two books. Let's get started. Scientific inquiry is propelled by three fundamental forces that emerge from the three principal spheres of the human mind. The first driving force is the sense of wonder, emerging from the emotional sphere of the human mind, associated with the sensory portion of the human nervous system. And the sense of wonder is elicited by the aesthetic, structural, and functional elegance of the natural world. In other words, in my view, the beauty of nature derives from the presence of an inherent logos that is an intrinsic rationality, manifesting in the existence of physico-chemical laws that are uniform in space and time. A second driving force is epistemic curiosity that represents the intrinsic drive to comprehend and explain natural phenomena. And this epistemic curiosity emerges from the cognitive sphere of our mind that is associated with the cerebral portion of the human nervous system. And finally, a third driving force is the ambition to enhance our own psychophysical well-being and that of the entire humanity. If the scientist is driven by a philanthropic feeling or by a religious feeling of love towards humanity. This third force emerges from the motivational active sphere of our mind, associated with the effectors of the human nervous system. And this third force promotes the technological development. Between science and technology, there is a mutual positive feedback action. Scientific knowledge promotes the technological development, but at the same time, new technologies give rise to new facilities and tools to deepen our knowledge about the natural phenomena. These three forces, the sense of wonder, the epistemic curiosity, and the ambition to enhance our psychophysical well-being, have been guiding humanity along a fascinating journey to discovering the secrets of nature. This journey began with the appearance of the first hominids on Earth between 4 and 3 million years ago. And this journey has been punctuated by two revolutionary intellectual events so far. They are the birth of philosophy in the 6th century BC and the mature formulation and the systematic application of the experimental method in the 17th century AD. And these two revolutionary intellectual events split the entire journey into three main stages or periods that we might call practical, philosophical, and experimental. In my view, we are experiencing a third revolutionary intellectual event right in these decades. And this event, sparked by the necessity of understanding and managing the complex systems, will trigger a new stage in the human journey to discovering the secrets of nature that probably will be called computation. But before talking about this third revolutionary intellectual event and the consequent period we might experience, it's worthwhile highlighting some key aspects of the periods we have already passed, starting from the practical period, which is the longest period in this human journey to discovering the secrets of nature. During the practical period, humanity, spurred by their necessity of surviving at first and improving their psychophysical well-being, sought solutions to a plethora of practical problems, exploiting the motivational sphere of their minds. Unconsciously, humanity in this period developed the first and fundamental physico-chemical technologies, the first and fundamental social technologies, and the first and fundamental biotechnologies. The method employed to develop these astonishing technologies was a careful observation of the surrounding environment, supported by a tenacious practice of trial and error, serendipity, and the ability of particularly ingenious minds to formulate the first inductive rules of time. Then, in the 6th century BC, in the Greek colonies of Asia Minor and southern Italy, the first revolutionary culture event occurred that was the birth of philosophy. Philosophers, spurred by their sense of wonder and epistemic curiosity, raised fundamental questions regarding nature, the origin of everything, and the meaning of human lives. And to find answers, philosophers promoted a first methodological paradigm shift because they look for answers exploiting the etiological rationalism based on free thinking. It means a rigorous logical thinking, prone to search for the cause of everything and devoid of dogmas. Although the available data were rather poor, those that can be collected using the human senses that are endosomatic tools because they are within our bodies, some philosophers propose answers about the natural phenomena that are still considered valid. For instance, Pythagoras realized that the key to understanding nature is mathematics because the numerical harmony exists everywhere. In the Middle Ages, the philosopher Alhazen, the Arab Alhazen, and the scholastic philosophers Roger Bacon and William of Ockham realized that experiments are relevant for questioning nature. And in the Renaissance era, Leonardo da Vinci had the merit to bring to the same level of cultural dignity the liberal arts requiring mental skills and the mechanical arts requiring manual skills. The philosophers prepare the ground for the second revolutionary cultural event that was the mature formulation of the systematic application of the experimental method. This revolutionary cultural event occurred in the 17th century AD within the scientific academies, blossomed in Italy, and then the rest spread in the rest of Europe. And within these academies, a new collaboration began, a collaboration between natural philosophers and artisans. Artisans were helpful to design and implement instruments, exosomatic tools, employed to extend the frontiers of human knowledge about nature, otherwise delimited by the investigating power of our senses, and the instruments were crucial to gain more objective, reproducible, and universally valid responses from nature. Moreover, any experiment requires the isolation of the phenomenon under investigation, its purification within a room of a laboratory, and this isolation is required to simplify the analysis of the phenomenon and to guarantee more reproducible results by excluding random events as much as possible. During any experiment, numerical data are collected, and finally, the numerical data are processed to formulate the natural laws in mathematical and geometrical languages. Thanks to the contribution of Galileo Galilei at first and Isaac Newton later, the principles of classical mechanics were formulated. Immediately, classical mechanics revealed a remarkable predictive and descriptive power. It was possible to understand the motion of the planets in the solar system, understand the phenomena of tides, predict the trajectories of bullets in a battlefield, describe the vibration of elastic bodies, the laminar flow of fluids, and interpret parameters such as temperature and pressure of gases described at the microscopic level. The success of classical mechanics induced the natural philosophers of the 17th and 18th century to formulate metaphysical ideas regarding the essence of nature and also propose epistemological pillars to investigate the rest of the universe. First, nature is simple, so we can apply the reductionist approach. Second, the laws of nature are uniform in space and time, and in principle, it's possible to describe any event in the universe considering an absolute space-time reference system, and offers, using this absolute space-time reference system, offers universally valid descriptions of any phenomenon. Third, reality is mechanistic. The universe is animated by machines that behave reversibly because their momentum is conserved. Moreover, reality is governed by a forward causal event, so is deterministic and in principle predictable. Scientific knowledge at the end of the 18th century was described as a magnificent tree, having the metaphysical ideas of simplicity, uniformity, determinism, and mechanicism at its roots. The trunk of this tree was physics, and all the branches were the other disciplines: chemistry, biology, medicine, and so on and so forth. But this picture of scientific knowledge does not correspond to the image we have nowadays of scientific knowledge, because it evolved in the following centuries according to a mechanism that can be described through a scheme that I'm going to propose on this slide. First, the facilities and tools at our disposal determine the portion of the natural phenomena that can be observed by collecting data, then by observing peculiar phenomena. Particularly brilliant minds are capable to formulate axioms or first principles through brilliant inductive jumps. Then we deduce theorems from the axioms, and to validate the theorems and axioms, we perform experiments in the laboratory. The theorems and axioms are correct if the predictions we can make, considering the theorems and axioms, are confirmed by the outcomes of our experiments. When everything is confirmed, then we have acquired new scientific knowledge of the phenomena that we can observe, and therefore this new scientific knowledge will promote technological development, and the new technologies will extend the portion of the natural phenomena that can be observed. New features of the universe might pop up, new phenomena not seen, observed before. And so for their explanation, we need a new cycle of inductive jumps, the formulation of new axioms, the deduction of new theorems, and the execution of new experiments to validate the new theorems and axioms. When everything is confirmed, we have acquired new knowledge, and this new knowledge will promote a further technological development, but usually new technologies will extend the portion of the natural phenomena that can be observed. Then new features of the universe might pop up, and we will need a new cycle of inductive jumps, deductions, and experiments. This actually occurred in the following centuries, after the 18th century, because the formulation of thermodynamics required to explain the behavior of machines, And the formulation of the biological evolution theory revealed that most of the machines animating this universe behave irreversibly. Moreover, the discovery of chaos and the formulation of quantum mechanics revealed that some phenomena are unpredictable. The formulation of the relativity theory demolished the epistemological pillar of universality. An absolute space-time reference system doesn't exist. In the last decades, the many attempts at understanding phenomena such as life, intelligence, consciousness revealed the inadequacy of the reductionist epistemological pillar, of the reductionism. Moreover, the global challenges we are spurred to face in this century are showing that reality is not simple at all. In this century, humanity is spurred to face challenges that are called global. Examples are the global warming, the necessity of promoting a sustainable development of our productive activity, the dream of predicting geological catastrophic events like earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Moreover, the fight against still incurable diseases, the will of eradicating poverty from the earth, and the dream of predicting those economic crises that in certain cases might be unavoidable, and the dream of guaranteeing justice in our societies. A more comprehensive list of global challenges is included in the famous 2030 agenda compiled by the members of the United Nations. And whenever we face one of these challenges, whenever we face these challenges, we need to deal with systems such as the climate of the earth, the ecosystems, the urban areas, the geology of our planet, the human beings and their health, the world economy, the human societies. Apparently, these systems are quite diverse, and traditionally, they are investigated by well-distinct disciplines. However, an interdisciplinary investigation, a systematic interdisciplinary investigation began in the 1980s, have revealed that this system, called complex systems, actually shares some features. The science of complex systems demonstrate that these systems can be described as networks made of nodes and links. For instance, in a cell, the nodes are the molecules and the intermolecular interactions are the links. In a brain, the nodes are the neurons and the connections between dendrites and synapses are the links. In an ecosystem, the nodes are the biological species and the trophic and the symbiotic relationships are the links among the nodes of this network. Moreover, complex systems are out of equilibrium networks. Usually, complex systems are open. They exchange both energy and matter with the surrounding environment. Rarely they are closed and hardly ever isolated. An example of an isolated complex system is our universe. If a complex system is made of inanimate matter, its behavior is driven by force fields, which are gradients of intensive variables such as temperature, pressure, concentration of the chemical species. But when a complex system is made of living matter, its behavior also depends on the variable information that every living being encodes, collects, stores, processes, and communicates to pursue goals. Finally, complex systems exhibit emergent properties. A property is emergent when it belongs to the network as a whole. We can invoke the holism from Aristotle and proclaim the whole is greater than the sum of its parts to explain the concept of emergent property. Or we can cite Philip Henderson, one of the fathers of complexity science, and declare the whole is not only greater than, but also very different from the sum of its parts. So the complexity of system is a multivariable function that depends on the multiplicity of the network, the number and types of nodes, the interconnection of the network, the number and types of links, and the integration of the properties of the nodes due to the nonlinear relationship linking all the nodes of the network. And these are context dependent. The investigation of complex systems undermines the experimental method for different reasons. First, the dimensional reason. Many complex systems cannot enter a laboratory. Second, in ontological reasons. Complex systems are open, so they are usually open, and they are strongly interlinked to their environment, to their context. If we isolate in a laboratory, complex systems in a laboratory when it is possible, we radically transform their behavior. Then there's a temporal reason. The time required to see the results of an experiment might be much longer than the human lifespan. And finally, an epistemological reason. Most experiments involving complex systems are historical events, and they are not reproducible. In this regard, the image that the philosopher Karl Popper proposed in his essay entitled Of Clouds and Clocks is particularly appropriate. In the past, science has been occupied with clocks, which are simple, deterministic systems having reproducible behaviors. Now, instead, science has to deal with clouds, which are complex systems, with unique and hardly replicable behavior. So it's evident that we need a methodological paradigm shift to deal with complex systems. We should go beyond the reductionist approach, which requires an analysis of all the nodes and links. But often this analysis and this reductionist approach is inappropriate. So we can apply the systemic approach, which focuses on the behavior of the entire system. Or sometimes we can apply the mesoscopic approach, which focuses on the behavior of clusters on nodes and their links. Moreover, since complex systems are in continuous evolution, it's necessary to monitor their continuous change due to the adaptation to the surrounding environment that changes. And we need to monitor their evolutions by collecting, storing, and processing huge amount of data, the so-called big data. Moreover, computer simulations based on reasonable models of complex systems become alternative ways of performing experiments on complex systems. But we are aware that we need to speed up the computational rate and extend the memory space of our computation machines. We need to improve the reliability of our models and contrive always more effective algorithms. So it's evident that we are experiencing a third revolutionary intellectual event in the human journey to discovering the secrets of nature. And this third revolutionary intellectual event is transforming all disciplines, including chemistry. But chemistry can play a relevant role because it's a central science. It's at the heart of human and animal health, biological environment, and physical environment. However, we are aware that we need a metamorphosis because chemistry must expand its mission from molecules to everything that involves molecules. And to succeed in this metamorphosis, in my view, chemistry must be practiced and taught with a focus on this century's global challenges, and chemistry must be enriched by the science of complex systems. So we have new challenges ahead. Complexity science challenges chemistry to help understand certain emergent properties of complex systems, such as life, intelligence, and the consciousness of living beings. But chemistry can respond to this request and can face these challenges because as the science of molecules, chemistry has been defined as the embodiment of emergence. So we have new perspectives for chemistry. The chemist becomes someone who not only designs molecules, but also designs molecular networks based on reciprocal nonlinear relationships. When these chemical networks are kept far from thermodynamic equilibrium, they can generate emergent properties, thereby imitating living forms. In conclusion, since humanity has to understand and manage complex systems, we are witnessing a third revolutionary cultural event. This event opens a new era in the humanity's journey to uncover the secrets of nature and offers new perspectives on chemistry. But chemistry can play a relevant role because it's a central science. Thanks for your attention.